How does a manufacturer's product release cadence affect planning, inventory decisions, and ability to meet demand, for better or worse? Who would like to take that first?
Right.
Wes?
Sure, I'll go first. Everyone was leaping to the challenge there, see? It's good to see. I guess I would start out by saying, we obviously work in the TV and film industry, but also in a number of other industries. Music, we work in corporate. And so I think for us, we've been seeing product development at the pace that it's now happening in TV for many years. We were in the early 2000s watching LED products initially be available for corporate events, things of that nature. And as that happened, there was this rapid development. Everyone was trying to get every 6 months something new out. And we do see that now as LEDs become more prevalent in TV and film. We see that same type of development from some manufacturers. And I think the lesson that can be learned from those early days in the other end markets of music and corporate is that if you go too fast, the product doesn't have enough room to breathe. It really needs time to reach a critical mass and have ability to be in your inventory for enough time that you can market it to people as a rental house, that you can have the manufacturer marketing alongside you. And if that happens, then it becomes very successful. I think if you go too fast and you're always ready to leap into the new thing, even if you have the ability to leap into the new thing, it might not be the best idea. And so for us, it's having that time to breathe, I think, is important.
Gary.
Great point. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and thank you, Tama, for the opportunity for Cinelease and myself to come here and convey and have this collaboration. I think it's a great strategy. To the point at hand, Cinelease was established in 1977. We've had kind of a long tenure experiencing products. Before, it was a thing about, longevity for robust products. There was only a few in the market. We've only had a couple of options. Fast forward to today, as we've experienced not only with the current climate and all the challenges that we've experienced in our industry, LED has come about, video walls and all this other stuff. It's extremely important that, we create this collaboration and do the proper planning and this road mapping to get us to the level where we can service our customers. Customer relationships are very important, and producing a good strategy behind the scenes so that we can, exceed at these goals are very important. So we must adapt, during this recovery period, create unity so that we can be of service.
Tama, your thoughts?
Well, I think that we've come from a historic perspective, like you're talking about, Gary, which is like, we come from a time of quite a normal stability in not only technology, but the way that our industry operated, right? So we had got quite used to this model where product came into the market, in a 3 or a 5 year or 10-year cycle, and it really didn't change that much. Yeah, you could change a few things, but there weren't that many things that you could tweak in terms of the design or the way that it went together. Of course, that's changed rapidly. I mean, now we have computers running out lights basically built into them, and that computing power and technology combined with LED as this sort of growing field of output is obviously changing, the speed at which people are able to remix the product into never-ending iterations, right? But we get to choose, as an industry, we get to choose where we see those sensible points, right? We get to choose where we engage with the technology and invest in it, and at what point we decide, okay, this has the maturity level that we need, that we can see has the longevity to achieve, like what you're saying, Wes, like that point of yeah, this makes sense, and we've got time to market it, and we've got time to make our money back, right? So yeah.
Very important.
That is very important. Vital, in fact, right?
Right.
And kind of piggybacking on what Gary said, it is a very customer, oriented business, and part of our goals as lighting suppliers and rental houses is, we need to stock a plethora of different products beyond Creamsource, and you're talking HMIs, tungsten, data. I mean, it's our job to make sure that we have enough to source our productions, and every production is different. We can do something that's very sci-fi or low budget, and we have to be able to be adapt and have the right product for those needs. And sometimes it can get a little tricky with budgets in the way of production and what we have in stock, and we all do a very good job of making it work with what we have in our arsenal.
It's a tricky balance, isn't it? I mean, you're always riding that knife edge of like investing the right amount for the production and what they can afford versus what your long-term goals are as a rental house, right? I mean, that's...
Yeah, and then one thing that I think also matters from the, talking to your side as far as what helps us from rental houses is letting us know what's coming out, right? Because some people on the manufacturing side will just develop in secret, right? And they will not tell us what's going on. And occasionally a product would come out, and when you haven't heard of it as a rental house, that's hard, right? Because you may have taken steps to either, divest out of that product, or maybe, see the next generation that's coming and start to prepare for that. And if you don't have that time to prepare, it does make the adoption harder, right? Because you might be right in the middle of some kind of cycle that kind of screws it up for you when you don't have an awareness.
Or you made a wrong investment, like you said, you bought something this year, and then next year the new line comes out, you're like, wait, I feel like I should have known about that, and I wouldn't have done this massive investment.
Right.
A new product line that just came out a year later. It hurts. It really hurts us.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's been a pretty bumpy ride, the whole industry. COVID, the strikes. What do you guys see as the biggest challenges facing you?
Budgets, production budgets are not the same as we all know that. So we have to, a return on investment for companies like us as we're trying to keep up with this technology, like Ryan said, and we've all shared the same. I think this is a great strategy, and I'm very optimistic about it. I think it would be a good, it's a good roadmap to start planning this. We no longer, we know that we've all been affected by this, times. And, I can't say enough, the budgets are not there. Not only for production, but for us to invest, it has to be strategic, it has to be very precise, and it has to involve defining, measuring, and analyzing the products. And if we get surprised or blindsided every year by companies that are not necessarily, sharing with us, it becomes more challenging. And right now we need more unity and collaboration. That's why I'm so excited about the strategy you got moving forward. And I'm hoping that this is going to take us to the next level where we can all win.
I would say from a challenge standpoint, investing with confidence, because after the supply chain issues coming out of COVID, all of us did our best to up our inventories, right? We tried to service everything that was going on, and in 2022 there was an amazing amount of production going on across the country, right? And so you were pulling equipment forward.
And an amazing amount of products.
And an amazing,
market,
right. Everything was coming out, everyone was pushing things out, and we were grabbing them up as quickly as we can. And in general, all of us, I think that rent equipment had, a lot of investment, a lot of gear on the water that was coming over, and then next thing you know, the demand falls off. And so now the question becomes, if you feel you're going to invest, how much are you going to invest, and are you going to have enough time if you decide to pull the trigger to get it in before something happens, right? Or the budget drops, or the show gets moved somewhere. So investing with confidence is the biggest challenge, I think, at this point.
And with that, right after post-COVID boom, it was nuts all over the globe, and companies are starting up, new studios are being built all across America, and a lot of them are sitting empty right now. And the people that are left, like Cinelease, Four Wall, ourselves. When we're making an investment now, like you guys said, it needs to be strategic. And it's like, if we know certain Gaffers coming in for our next show and, he's taking 3 stages, we kind of know some of the flavors that he likes. And we're not just buying to buy equipment anymore. It's got to be justified and it's got to go on some long-term orders. So we're being very careful on how we proceed.
Yeah, so if I can just riff on that bit further, but I mean, what kind of message do you think you guys would have for the manufacturers? What would you tell us? Like, what do we need to do to make sure that we're placing things really in the right spot to be that future partner if you were any of us in the field, right?
I mean, I guess I would start with helping to, which you guys have worked a lot on and things like this are part of that, helping to create demand, right? Because anyone, we hear the demand right now for certain products and that's what leads us to invest, right? So that means someone else is doing the marketing besides us. The worst thing we have is a product that comes out that the manufacturer wants us to buy, but no one's heard of out of our client base, right? So if the demand's already been created to some extent, then that's already checked the box that we feel more confident as we go in. So marketing matters, I think, from the manufacturer side for sure.
Yeah, we can certainly, we help with that as well. And yes, it is y'all's job to push the product out, and once that demand is there, we react, and because we want to capitalize on that. And we certainly help with, putting demo units out or working with the manufacturers very closely with putting product in our rental house so people can come and play with it. Because it's a collective effort to kind of get that out there. And it is hard to buy equipment right now. So again, being strategic, it has to be justified. So that is a tricky question right now in the state of the industry.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's time to do exactly what we're doing right now. It's trying to strategically place ourselves where we don't get hurt. We can't afford to get hurt anymore. We have to create some momentums that are going to create, good returns on investment, so that we could sustain this wave.
What kind of support or model from manufacturers helps you maximize return on investment on gear? What's worked well in the past? What would you like to see more of in the future?
What we're doing right now, when there's a new product line that comes out, whether it's Creamsource or any other of the manufacturers, like we said in the beginning, we want to be prepared for that, and be willing to help, push it out, whether it's on demos or camera tests, and help you guys out as much as we can.
I think it is pre-gaming the launch and getting it out there and being ready, and then communicating ahead of time. And so once that happens, though, if the launch has been pre-gamed in the right way, that means that we have had demo units out for ourselves and the customers as well. Then when things are getting marketed, have them ready to ship. Right. That's the other model too, right? Creating demand and then not having units to ship. I've seen lots of things go that way. Right, right. And everyone has, right? Everyone's done that. There's things where there are delays from other countries. We've heard this, potentially. And so when those things happen,
we get pretty good at blaming supply chain as manufacturers.
We just say tariff. You just say tariff. Yeah, you're like tariff.
Yeah. Lack of chips.
Sure. Who needs chips? Yeah. So when those things happen, that kind of kills the momentum. But so it's the pregame, then having the gear ready to go, and then supporting it from a service standpoint, because obviously when it gets into the market, there are going to be shifts in software, things like that have to be corrected. And if you correct those quickly during that first launch, then you get into that kind of long tail push where things are out there and working properly.
Absolutely. And stepping back a little bit, when you guys are sitting in, your think tank out, somewhere in the world, consider the things that we have to go through when building the product. That the product can be, developed in a way which Creamsource has done a fantastic way so far, and I think what I've seen, it's going to be even better. But we're moving in a fast world. We got weather conditions. You took care of that. keep making equipment that can withstand weather, okay? We have different parts of the world, snow somewhere, it's hot somewhere. These are, like you said, Tama, these are computers that we're dealing with now. For a rental house to be able to, withstand that wear and tear, and for us to create ROI, doesn't necessarily, cover strategy, but the product has to be robust. The product has to have enough output. The product has to have, the latest and greatest. However, the latest and greatest that can create that long-term rental investment, prosperity that we're all looking for, especially in, small markets. We're now talking about end users that are grips and gaffers, and grips and gaffers can't really invest the way that maybe a rental house can or a studio can. So taking all those, topics and key performance indicators that can create a product that'll be widely used by all the markets, special events. It's kind of like what you're doing already,
It's definitely tricky, like for those crossover markets, and I'm glad you talked about them. The small to mid-size rental companies obviously have quite a big sort of sway globally, but being a very individual operated business type model, people are making very scattered decisions on what kind of inventory they're loading up on, which can affect them pretty negatively if they're not in tune with the rest of the market. So it gets even more risky, like the further out you go, right? Because you've got to make a decision that's probably backed by a home loan or something, right? As a small operator, that might be what you're doing. You're trying to finance it using your own cash, physical cash, and that's putting everything at risk. So
speaking of that and being global, we have studios out in London as well, and Creamsource product is very popular along with everything else, and having that manufacturer support, whether it's from the lighting dealers assisting or the manufacturers out there, if something goes down, since us gentlemen sitting up here, we're the providers. We provide a customer service to the production, to the crews. If something goes down, we don't know how to react. We need your support along the way, because at the end of the day, those are our customers, and we want that repeat business. So having that support is very crucial.
Yeah, and then the other thing I would say is, as far as things that help us from the manufacturer side with a rollout or a launch like that, is sell on your own merits versus selling against something else, right? So what are you providing that's something that we can go say this is better than the other thing, instead of just saying, hey, this is another option that does exactly what this other thing does? And so when you do that, whether it's, and you guys are doing this with, the software side, obviously, with Slide, and some of those things where it's offering something that others are not, and then just selling on your own merits, that helps us, right? Because then we have a reason to go push this new thing and tell them hey, this is going to add value to your production.
It also helps you out, it creates longevity for your rental arsenal, and you can have repeat rentals. So.
Wes, you touched on problems with secrecy and development of gear. Without naming names or bashing anyone, any companies, are the manufacturers who've handled release cycles or support particularly well? What makes good relationships work?
Yeah, and I think our experience, like I said, is probably different than others, because we've been buying moving lights and other things for other industries outside of TV for a very long time. And the most successful relationships are the ones that understand that, we're a rental house, we have weird economics, right? So figuring out how we can get product into our inventory without us paying all of it up front, right? Or doing things, figuring out terms in situations like that. Those are the partnerships that have worked, and then it's our job to then take care of the people who take care of us, right? If someone gives us a great deal one time, then we need to figure out how to create a win-win for them. Maybe it's through marketing, maybe it's through, putting it in a location that we don't see the demand in yet to help that manufacturer get in there. And so you got to work back and forth to do those things. But if they understand our economics, then we can usually bring the customers to them, because ultimately we're providing space, which not everyone has everywhere, right? We have lots of facilities everywhere to put equipment in. And we're also providing a marketing arm of every sales team we have in those locations. And so that promise has to kind of go back and forth. If they're going to support us on the upfront economics, then we'll usually get the back end right. That's our goal.
Absolutely. Going back to the, it's all budgets, right? Budgets and having the manufacturer's relationship, trusting that, obviously, we'd like to say, at Cinelease, we pay our bills on time, but, we having that long-term terms perhaps, or having the financial backing of maybe some demo units that we can educate the market, as well as educate our own workforce. I think education, to your prior questions as well, is huge. We need to educate our workforce. We need to educate, ourselves. Myself, I like to learn something every day about, what can this product do, and provide the customer with the right tool for what they need. Kind of listen to what the product, what the production needs, and then turn it over to giving them options. Cinelease has a lot of versatility. We like to say that we can provide an arsenal of tools for the DPs to paint with lights, for the gaffers to incorporate into a scene, and for the grips to shape the light. And having that availability from Creamsource and from all the other manufacturers. And you mentioned the slide. I think it adds a lot of value to that, because you guys are not just being yourselves, you guys are providing value to the whole industry, so that's very important. Getting lights for free would work.
I concur.
Sounds great to me.
When we're at these trade shows, across the world, every other month, you see a new product from a manufacturer, and gaffers are looking at it. This is awesome. This is the exact tool that I need. And then when they come time to do their project and they request the rental house, they need it. Not available. Sorry. It's like, okay, well, you're not helping the case. So if you're gonna have an award-winning product, you need to stand by it and be prepared for that flux, because as we're not buying equipment just to buy equipment now, like it could be like a week, 2 week notice, and those manufacturers need to be prepared for that. It's very crucial.
Yeah, sometimes the best ability is availability, right? And so if we get a request in, now the good thing is all of our guys just say yes to everything anyway. That's usually how that goes, but that's what salespeople want to do. And so the good thing is if they know they have a relationship with a certain manufacturer, and they know this from the top down, there's a list of manufacturers that we tell them, hey, if you get a request for this, you can trust that we'll go figure out how to buy it, right? And so if you have that confidence that your sales team knows that that's a manufacturer that we can go push, even if it's not sitting on the shelf, then that's huge.
Production needs the budget too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, where are the producers? Any producers here?
They're looking for money.
We're prepared to help, but like Gary said at the beginning, it's when you're starting a show and you want that new thing, your production may not always afford it. And of course, we find creative ways to try to get that in your hands to the best of our human ability in this tough time. But it does come down to money a lot with the productions. It is a tricky game right now.
But I think that's also based on the current product cycles that we've seen and the technology cycles, right? And so in order to rent a more expensive piece of equipment onto a lower paying job, you got to know that you're going to be able to do that many, many times over many years, and be able to carry that inventory, right? Otherwise it really doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and I mean, and going back to the original part of the question of like what hasn't worked, well, what hasn't worked is sometimes coming out with a product that's so far out of range budget-wise, right? It's a $20,000 product, right, for us as a rental house. Well, that's tough to go sell to anyone, right? And so someone spent a lot of R&D on those types of products, and then, how many can you possibly get out to a real production right now? I think that's something to remember.
Right. Let's talk about the LED revolution. How has the shift from traditional tungsten lighting to LED changed the way you position business in the market, especially in terms of gear, turnover, education, and demand?
LED is, revolutionary in a way, right? I mean, that's what we're going through. We're going through this fast-paced change. From what I can hear, I'm not very technical. I'm not an expert, but I think that we're getting close to doing that cross-pollination of tungsten between LEDs. I think this, there's, Tama, I want to hear from you about that because maybe you can educate us on that.
Well, I mean, are you talking about, are we ready for
Tungsten versus LED and how we can still utilize some of our old products that we still have in our arsenal because of the times.
I mean, obviously, a lot of people are still carrying a lot of different instruments, and there's still a lot of legacy products in the market. Some of it still rents, some of it still rents en masse for certain productions. That's the nature of it, right? So it depends a lot on the kind of mixed bag of production that you're going to have moving through your shop. How much, more legacy equipment you have versus your newer instruments.
But I think it's inevitable, right? I think, going back to our other end markets for music and the moving lights, we had 95% of our moving lights when I started with 4-wall in 2003 were tungsten based, right? And now it's probably 90% the other way, right? They're 90% LED moving lights. Right. And so that change happened over time. It happened earlier than it has for this market, obviously, because of being on camera, but it's still going to happen, right? Because the technology is constantly being worked on. And so as a rental house, you have to accept that you're going to switch out those products. You're going to end up with LED products, and the other stuff is going to go up for sale or in a dumpster at some point, right? And that's just the reality, right? Because eventually, efficiency and the ability to not have additional costs with lamps. I mean, we forget as a rental house sometimes how much we used to spend just in lamps, right? Like for us on the moving light side, MR16 strips, things like that. Back when I first started, those costs are all gone now, right? And so the LED product technically has a better ROI at the end of the day.
And a lot with the tungsten product, like there's a lot of globes are not being manufactured right now, so you just simply can't even get the globe that you want. And furthermore, when you're rigging all tungsten production, this is low budget. Think about all the cable and that you have to support that tungsten. Beyond with the LED, you can plug it into a simple Edison, run a DMX or Ethercon, and you're good to go. So it is making that shift, and like Wes said, the globes, like you can't even get them now. So it is slowly starting to get phased out. And however, as rental houses, and especially with Cinelease's legacy equipment, you still need to have that stuff, because if you do a certain production, like some of those mold products will have to be in the shot, and period pieces. Like we're doing that right now in Atlanta, and we have 2K scoop lights from mold. They're still being ordered, so we have to be prepared. It's like, okay, do we try to dump it, do we sell it, or do we hold on to it? It's tricky.
Not disagreeing with the utilization percentages that we might be experiencing in the future in the theatrical world and other worlds out there. Cinelease is, we've done a lot of TV, we've done some feature films and stuff. Right now, we're doing some reshoots for Michael Jackson, but it was a period piece. I Love Lucy, things like that we're still doing that are requiring us to, keep that inventory on the shelf still. Mm-hmm. And we are getting a lot of high percentage utilization on those. And I tell you, it's a juggling time when we're getting ready. Okay, we're gonna sell this tungsten, and now I'm short a bunch of Molpars and a bunch of Nightlight Maxis and all this tungsten that, period pieces are big for us, sometimes when we do them. So that's to the question is, how can we get LED to do the same thing as tungsten? I happen to be a fan of tungsten. I'm gonna miss it. I know change is the surest thing, and nothing changes if nothing changes. But I think, that's why you're here, Tama. Lead us into the change world.
Well, yeah, you're here to ruin all that fun that everybody had all those years back, right?
You just got to make a Molpar. That's what he's asking for.
Yeah. Actually, that's next on the roadmap. Yeah. We still got to figure out how to copy that damn reflector, though.
Tim, can you get to work on that? That'd be great.
So what happens when you're in some kind of sales or prep situation and a gaffer asks for a specific piece of equipment you don't have or you may be hesitant to invest in? How do you handle that situation? What does the decision making look like when you're choosing whether to sub-rent or offer an alternative?
Take them to play golf. Relationships, you know, I mean, not only relationships, but you gotta think about continue to, you know, improve our inventory. You know, Cinelease has been blessed. We have, you know, we've been around a long time. We have a lot of relationship-based things. And we also have these products going back to either legacy products or, you know, we can invest in all the lines. And yes, we get really upset sometimes when products are being released year after year after year. You know, that's really kind of disappointing, you know. But, you know, the gaffer, you know, has a responsibility to the DP to get what he wants. The DP wants to paint with lights. And we have to really, if it's on the short list, and we either sub-rent it, or we'll buy it, or we'll definitely give them some other options, you know? I mean, it's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with Gary that the show's going to happen, and they're probably going to get what they want in some way, shape, or form. So I think it's important to have an ecosystem, right? Like, you know, at the end of the day, Gary has studios, he also has gear. I hope that if he gets in a situation like that, he'll call us and ask if we have it. And, you know, conversely, you call another studio. That's what Elliot says all the time. 100%. So,
And if you can't really need, you know, just gaslight and haze the customer.
100%.
Yeah.
While they're golfing.
Yeah.
While they're golfing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And take them for bourbon.
Yeah, compromised position. Yeah.
Kind of saying what Gary's saying, yes, you know, $1,000 steak dinner, and I'll walk through our rental house and say, you're not going to work with what we have in here. However, it's a little more deeper than that. You know, you want to form those relationships with the gaffers and the crews, and because they are the ones creating the list, you know. So you partner up with those gaffers, and you come to a common ground and figure something out, so they, you know, can utilize your warehouse. You know, if it's absolutely something that they have to have for a particular shot, you know, and it's a newer product line, we're gonna get it for you. We're gonna find a way. We're gonna be honest, and we're gonna get you what you need at the end of the day. And to speak with sub rentals, you know, we're not gonna be buying something for like a 1 week drop load. Now, if it's a 30-week TV show, it's a different story. Is that ROI on a 30-week rental is fantastic. So you know, usage plays a huge role.
I can see everybody smiling when you say 30 weeks.
But I do think that goes into, you know, the way budgets work. Obviously, like you said, you're not gonna sub-rent if it's, you know, long term. You're gonna go figure it out and buy it. In the short term, like you said, you got to be willing to go find it. And I think before there was this expectation that a sub-rental would make you a ton of money, right? If it was a portion of that. But with where budgets are, I think all of us have to accept this. Sometimes you have to go do the right thing for the client, get the sub-rental. Maybe you're not going to be able to mark it up a ton, but it's going to roll out your package and complete your package. There goes your car.
Tama, how do you think about your relationship with rental houses? I mean, what are your goals in supporting them through Creamsource's product and service strategy?
Our goals are pretty simple. I mean, I think, you know, we really aim to be that link and that partner to technology and the deeper research, obviously our supply chain that we've built up over the last 20 years, and being a place where we can, you know, give clarity of information, give clarity of future technology, what's coming, what we see, because we're aggregating things in a different way to the way rental houses look at things. We're aggregating the data in a different way, I think, which is kind of, you know, our own unique viewpoint, which ultimately we can help the rental houses with by passing this information on. What we're seeing, you know, in the most transparent way that we can, obviously without too much, you know, Creamsource hazing in there, to make sure that we get the best quality conversations and we can make really good decisions together. Because I look at our rental houses as our partners, you know, and like these relationships are the way that we're going to really build our future together. So that bi-directional trust of you know, you guys trusting us with delivering the right products and keeping that service level up. That means a huge amount to us. And the other side of that, I think, is that we also have to entrust you with information of what's coming, with the clarity on deliveries, and those important sort of backbone things, as well as the sort of technology sidebar of being able to help bring in other adjacent technologies, and people that we're in contact with around the world that are doing, other really cool things. So, our friends at Fuse, for example, our friends at Satellite Labs, our friends at D&E, et cetera, We have many friends that, sort of we're pulling in because of our sort of technology bent. We hope what you can mix in with our partners at rental houses, at our rental houses, and understand each other more, and we can help bring those links together on the technology side. So it's kind of that partnership is what I'm envisaging, what I hope we're achieving, or what we're heading towards. And we're going to get off the stage and I'm going to get slapped by all three of you guys. But anyway, that's what I really want us to do. So yeah, thanks.
Tama, we often think of end users as the technicians on set, but rental houses are end users too, with their own operational needs like repairability, movement, and uptime. So how do you view that broader user spectrum, and how do those needs influence your design or business decisions and model?
Mouthful.
Yeah.
Look, I think that we do have very unique segments to the way that we view our broader customers, or our broader partners, if you want to call your end user who's on the set, your customer maybe. But I'd say that we have to segment it into the roles that the technology and the fixtures ultimately sort of play as they work through each portion of the value chain, right? And we also have to look at it from the perspective of, say, the producer, like how they're thinking about, how to control their budget or how to make their time on set more efficient. We have to also think about it from the usability perspective of the user that's actually interfacing with the fixture or operating it, setting it up, putting it back in the truck. We've got to think about the way that the rental house is taking that fixture, cleaning it, putting it back in its box, checking it in. The whole transport thing, which everyone knows is such a pain in the ass, right? I mean, like, different truck sizes, different box sizes, like how are we going to reshuffle this package to go with that thing? Like, it's a nightmare, right? So we've got to be very, very cognizant of all of that in the design phase, so we're bringing as many of these things together as we can. But yeah.
As I mentioned, it's obviously been a bumpy few years. What does the year ahead look like for you guys?
It's looking pretty optimistic right now. I gotta be optimistic. We have to be optimistic. We gotta get this industry back to where it belongs. I consistently say that because, and this is important. This is important, Tama. I think that what you've done, what Creamsource has done, since I met you a couple of decades ago, I think, you're still the same. Like your pair of shoes again, it's good. Can you throw that one in when you send me the free lights? That's gonna give you a PO. Anyway,
Free lights and a PO.
that's what the new year calls for. To answer your question,
Zero,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
To answer the question, yeah. We're hearing that part of this process, part of the progress, part of the initiative, it's part of the strategies are looking good, and when you sit the next year, I like to keep in mind that for manufacturers, going back to the road mapping, think tank, and when you guys getting all this strategic technologies together, that we think about from the next 5 years. as opposed to 1 year at a time. Because then that creates, better return on investment on us, better strategic planning, so that we can invest on the right product that is going to be helpful to the gaffers to provide to their DPs once again, so that the producers are happy and that we can sustain the budgets or offer products perhaps that are going to create that utilization that we really need as a rental house, as a studio, to sustain the future.
Wes?
Again, our business is a little more diversified, right? So we had a good first quarter, and a lot of that was not necessarily TV driven. A lot of that was driven by the other markets, corporate, house of worship, all the other markets we work in. I think for us, when we look at how we're budgeting for the next year, I think it's all about being realistic in the film world and just saying that there are some markets that probably in the next 6 or 7 months, they are what they are. We've been lucky that in New York, we've been very busy. That's a strong market for us. And I think there's a lot more going on there than there is maybe in Atlanta or in LA, really, at a lot of points. And so we're focusing on those markets and saying, hey, the reality is that's where the opportunity is right now, and maybe it's not in Atlanta. And we've got to adjust to that and just be very realistic and just, you can't live on hope until it actually starts to come back, right? And I think all of us have to adjust and be adaptable and be lean enough to absorb those realities.
Going off what Wes said, being, at that place at the right time for that flux is very important. And having 4 all over in London, we have studios in London and they're rocking and rolling. I mean, it's 75% occupancy right now, but we have our Atlanta studios, it's dead. So we're a lot smaller than the Cineleases and MDSs, but we can kind of hold on a little longer. And what's going to separate these other studios or rental houses is having state-of-the-art facilities, state-of-the-art team, and people willing to be there for when this thing flips around, which hopefully will be soon. But it's a tough question because it is sensitive right now. Yeah.
I never thought that Texas would be booming. Texas is happening. We just opened in Winnipeg. We got Toronto, Vancouver. All those markets are pretty steady right now, and they're growing. So to the point where logistics involved, technology, education, is being able to package, a whole suite of services that can be helpful and add value to each production. Gone are the days of pre-production. Gone are the days where you have, 2 weeks, 4 weeks of planning where you're rigging for a few weeks. Right now, everybody gets on a plane, they're sending messages, they're getting off the plane, they're scouting, and they want you to have the gear there tomorrow. And they're somewhere in the world. That's what we're facing, and that's what we are prepared for. That's what we need to prepare for, and we count on the manufacturers to help us, provide those products to the end users.
Yeah, I think to Ryan's point, saying that, everyone who's going to be around now has to work harder probably to make sure that you have the right things, right? We got into more LED walls, things like that, because on some shoots, we're doing a Spielberg thing right now that is basically us doing the LED on that. And we needed to adapt and not just be a lighting company years ago to be able to support those types of things. And so providing best-in-class service is the way you're going to win when there's less jobs to go around, right? That's just simply what we have to do.
All right, Gary, you mentioned rigging. I have to just mention this. I was chatting, name dropping, Chris McQuarrie from the new Mission Impossible film the other day. And he told me a funny story. He said, I was asking him how long was the shoot and how tough was it? And basically, he said the big problem boiled down to one word, rigging. And every day, Tom Cruise would come on the set and say, what's keeping you so long? And he would just have to say, the rig. That was it. That was the whole story of making the film.
You never want to make Tom Cruise wait.
No, he had to though. Okay guys, well, I think a big round of applause for us.